Welcome back to NB Media and Content. In today's video, I'm going to take you on a tour of this 1986 Mercedes-Benz 300 SL, known as the R107 series. And this will be a detailed review. I'm going to talk to you about its exterior design, interior features, options and specifications, and then I'm going to take it out on a drive. Before we get started, I'd like to thank Nathan from Retro Sydney. Nathan, what do you do on your socials?
So I share retro photos of Sydney, and I curate all the photos from archives and catalogues. And I've actually got a book coming out with some of the photos from my Instagram page later this year.
Nice, and I've linked your details in the description below.
Awesome.
But for now, let's start with the tour of your 300 SL.
Yep, let's do it.
Let's start off talking about some key points of the R107. This generation SL was a huge sales success, in particularly the US market, and it was the longest running production passenger car for Mercedes-Benz. The R107 ran from 1971 to 1989, replacing the SL Pagoda, which has been renowned as a timeless classic to many enthusiasts. However, because it was designed in the 1960s, it was a little bit old-fashioned compared to its replacement we're looking at today. The R107 offered technology highlights like fuel-injected V8s from the S-Class limousines. And this one we're looking at today is the 300 SL variant of the R107, which is a UK import built from 1985 to 1989. This example is finished in signal red, which in my opinion is the hero colour for any SL from the 1980s. Moving on to the front design of the car, it featured Bosch glass headlights with the orange indicators, Bosch glass front fog lights, some chrome surroundings around the bumper bar, and the unique radiator grille with the three-pointed star at the front, unique to all SL models. Moving on to the side of the car, the R107 featured these 15-inch flat-faced alloy wheels. We've also got some chrome around the windscreen, the wipers and the mirror caps here, running along the center of the car, and even on the door handles here, which I think looks really elegant. Moving towards the rear design of the 107, it featured this ribbed tail light design to prevent snow build-up on the rear tail lights so you could still see the light bulbs, and also featured chrome elements on the top of the boot lid and the unique 300 SL badge. Now once you're inside the 107 series, you have a familiar dashboard design from Mercedes-Benz of this era. There are some design elements from the W123 E-Class and the W116 S-Class. Now there was a combination of MBTEX and leather options. However, this example is finished in fabric beige, so you have the fabric in the center and the MBTEX on the side, which gives it a really nice look, complemented by the burr walnut timber trim. You're sitting on sprung seats that are very comfortable. You have a huge steering wheel that can block off the gauge cluster, but overall it's a very nice cabin to sit in. And right in front of me is the UK spec instrument cluster, so in the center it's showing miles per hour and kilometers. On the left side it shows my oil pressure, fuel, economy and temperature, and on the left my rev counter and clock. And just on the bottom here, just all my warning labels, indicators. On the right side are my indicators, lights, and on the left side is the ignition barrel. A key thing to know about the 107, the coupes, the hardtop versions, had an air conditioning vent in the middle for the rear passengers. However, this is a roadster. You have a temperature gauge in that slot instead. Moving towards the center, we have an original Becker Mexico stereo system, but an updated one, like a retro look version with iPod connectivity, Bluetooth, and a CD player. Lastly, the R107 featured a 2+2 set up as an optional extra, so you had room for two suitcases on this carpeted lining. However, if you put the seats up, there's room for two small children. The rear seats in an SL is rare to see in many examples, as it was a very expensive option, and as a result, if you find one with that option fitted, it will make your SL very desirable on the classic car marketplace. The following models after the 107 series didn't feature this option. However, the latest generation SL now features a 2+2 layout. The R107 also featured a hardtop for winter use. That meant you could turn your SL Roadster into an elegant coupe. Okay, moving towards the boot. If I just push this button underneath the chrome surround, we can see a large space for 2 golf clubs, very practical for a 2+2 roadster. This example I'm showing you also has the carpeted boot lining, whereas the previous earlier models had the plastic trim. We can also see the original spare tyre, the toolkit, and to make this boot scene a little bit more interesting, I've laid out all of its factory literature, original brochures, and the manuals, what this example comes with, which is really interesting to see. Under the bonnet features the M103 straight 6 engine. It's a 3-litre naturally aspirated chain driven motor, proven to be very reliable. This also features the 4-speed automatic. The earlier models had the 3-speed. However, how does it drive? So let's now find out. It's just a nice, elegant experience going back into the period of the 1980s. It drives very similar to many of the Mercedes models from the era. It does handle quite well for its age, considering this is over 40 years old, this car.
And the steering's, it's not as heavy as what you think it would be.
No, it's very light.
It's quite light. It's a rare thing in these cars in particular that it has that ability to be driven every day, because it's just as comfortable as a modern car would be. You don't have many compromises with it.
No.
So I do a lot of long distance driving in this car. It's not a car that's necessarily fast in a straight line, but it still has a bit of sporting credentials in the sense that, you know, it's rear wheel drive, it's well balanced. The power and the way that the gearbox works with the engine works really well. It's very smooth.
Yes.
It's more so a luxury car than a sports car. For a lot of people, I think, who grew up sort of in that era of the 70s, 80s and 90s, it really was the car that was the definition of a Mercedes-Benz, in the sense that it was, you know, nuts, bolts, wood, leather, you know, sort of a little bit ostentatious but also classy at the same time.
Yeah.
So I think it was a combination of those things, and obviously I have really fond memories of it when I was a kid, so that's why I bought one.
I got a question. I've tried to find an exact answer, but how much was a 107 brand new and just for an Australian delivery, a similar variant to this engine?
Yep. So I've gone back and had a look at classified ads, because people used to import these privately when they were new, or relatively new, so like a year old. They retailed from about 150,000.
And today's money, that's sort of...
I need to do the conversion, but I reckon it's about 340,000.
It's about the same as probably a new SL, really.
Yeah.
At the time.
Very much
then,
so.
But back then, that was a house in the 80s. Like that's what.
Yeah, that's a house.
Yeah, a house basically.
As I said, it's very much drives like a modern car, but has that classic car sort of solidity about it. And I mean, the 3-litre, it's a lot, because I test drove a lot of V8s when I was buying this particular car, and you notice the difference between it being quite heavy at the front end with the V8 versus the 6-cylinder, which I like. My mechanic Roland's done a lot of work to it, in terms of like the engine and making sure that it runs right, and that it runs really smoothly.
And the gearbox shifts very smoothly as well.
Yeah, it's a very, the thing about this particular box is very reliable. I know that with the M103.6, which is the 24 valve, they switched it to a 5-speed box, and it's not as nice as this one. It's a lot more temperamental than this one. This setup, the 103, the original 103 straight 6 3-litre with this gearbox is the best setup. You have to make sure that they're well maintained.
Yeah.
Because if they're not well maintained, that's when things start to get expensive. And I mean, it's a nearly 40-year-old car, so a lot of things, you know, need replacing or need maintenance. So yeah, but I was prepared for that when I bought the car. I knew that it wasn't going to be a sort of a cheap experience. To basically make the analogy that these cars here are very much like a Swiss watch. They need to be maintained, they need to be used, and if you don't do that, then things start to go wrong with them.
Yeah.
It's a very versatile setup. I mean, as I said, it's reliable, you know, it gets relatively good economy. Not that you'd buy this car for an economy, for economy means, and it's got enough power. So between this car and the 380, which was outgoing at the time, there's only 5 kilowatts difference.
It's not really, the design is very timeless, whether you're getting a Pagoda 107 or model series after this, they still look really elegant after the age. That's why they've become a desirable classic car. So what do I think overall about the R107? Not only it's an attainable, easy to live with and reliable classic car to own, SLs from this period can be very desirable and they will hold their value quite well if maintained. It represents a great example of what Mercedes was capable of building. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.